baby. Row 26. I'm here with my boy Hots. Dreamers, Six Heads, Sixers, Hotheads. Coming in hot right now. John, talk to me, boy. Good.
Hey, what's going on, brother? We're going to talk about some sick NBA basketball action in the playoffs, some great NHL action as well. Obviously, go over the PGA Championship. Zach said Xander couldn't do it, and he got it done. Proved him wrong. Lucky, he says.
Nah, just playing. Unbelievable. We'll talk about it.
If anyone, Bryson almost got lucky when he hit the tree, and then it wound up in the fairway to keep it close.
Absolutely.
But, we'll get into everything. But welcome back. We love you. Sorry about the delay this weekend. I was out in the Poconos, but we're ripping it.
Facts.
When you out here in the field, cause jealous niggas dealing with emotions only bitches feel. And 9 times out of 10, they just want a friend. But I've been real before rap, so I won't pretend. Tell them to they face all the flaws that I'm noticing.
All right, yo. You're my boy Nipsey. Rest in peace, Nipsey. Yo, on the rest in peace tip, I'm going to start off the show with the Bill Walton. We got to. Rest in peace to a legend, Bill Walton. You know, I didn't watch him play necessarily growing up, but definitely a guy that, you know, trendsetter. If you know about the history of basketball, college basketball legend. I believe he won 3 national titles, if I'm not mistaken, when he was in college. That's off the cuff. You'd have to double check me, but and then he got drafted by the Blazers. Is that correct? Yep. And then you wearing his jersey right now, John?
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah.
Absolutely go. I didn't even know that. This shows you exactly that's unbelievable. That's amazing. Talk to me, John, then. Talk to me, John.
Yeah, no, Bill Walton was an absolute great, obviously, like you mentioned, at UCLA and part of that dynasty in college, and then won a championship with the Blazers, obviously a star there before he even went to the Celtics, where most people know him from. Yep. But he actually carried that Blazers team to a championship, which not as many people know. And also, you know, you've lived on the West Coast, do live on the West Coast. I lived on the West Coast. The Pac-12 announcing duo of Bill Walton and Bill Pash has some absolutely hilarious legendary moments.
That's how I know Bill Walton. I think most people our age who are just run-of-the-mill fans, just guys that watch sports but don't necessarily know about every little detail, this and that. Definitely, I would say they know Bill Walton from calling games, especially calling like NBC games, shit like that. Which is, I mean, he's a legend from that perspective. I'd say as an announcer solely. Forget the playing career. I think there's probably a group of people that watch and listen to sports that don't even know that he was a legendary player. Seriously.
I mean, speak for yourself when you say you're one.
Yeah, I'm not saying for me, but I'm saying the average person.
You're like the average fan who doesn't know the details. Like I said, speak for yourself. You know, I mean, but like I said, being a Pac-12, you know, Pac-10 basketball fan over these last 20 years, I'd probably say, you've heard that voice a million times saying absolute nonsense half of the time he's talking, and Bill Pash getting frustrated. One of my favorite moments is he was like going to the bathroom during halftime. It was like late coming back to a Pac-12 game, and Bill Pash is like, I'm sure, like you, that we'd actually prefer if Bill didn't come back. Like he was that frustrated with him arguing in the first half just because you know how Bill Walton could get. So
he's kind of like a Clyde. He's kind of like a Clyde in a sense, the way he calls the game and like his, you know, his bloviation of plays and things like that, how he kind of talks, his intellect, but just goated though. So
and he's a little bit of like a string dummy with the Conference of Champions. Champions in the Pac-12. You heard it. You could play a drinking game with it when he was calling the game.
100%,
but yeah, no. Shout out to Bill Walton. Like we said, you know, an NBA champion. Let's get into the NBA playoffs. We'll get right into, you know, the talk of the town, the Mavericks, the way they're playing, dominating my Timberwolves, putting that future in a casket.
Kyrie's that guy, bro.
We missed a show in between, and there was a point in time where maybe we should have done a quick live or something where I was like, Zach, I need you to like tell me everything's going to be okay because I'm scared of this Mavericks team. And, you know, sure enough, it did take Ant Edwards playing his basically C- basketball for the first 3 games, and the first 2 were super duper close. But I mean, this Mavericks team
was a little better
in.
than that because he was playing well on defense. I thought in spurts. I thought he was engaged still in the game, and for most of both of the games that they've kind of let it slip away. I mean, I have a lot of opinions on this whole team. Like, in my opinion, Towns shouldn't even have started this past game. Like, that's where I was at almost with the Naz Reid thing. Like the matchup was just too strong there, and it just felt like they were picking on Rudy every time. So it's either you move Rudy to the bench or you move Towns to the bench. I felt like Nas had to get into that starting lineup. I know that's not maybe a common opinion, but that's something that I thought about when I was watching the games, even though he was their sixth man all year and that was his best role and he won the sixth man of the year. So why mess with a good thing in terms of his role? He's been productive from that perspective. Maybe you mess with him, but still, I just felt like Rudy on defense was getting exposed by guys like JJ Hardy. Like I saw Luka wave off, like trying to get the ball back from JJ Hardy off a switch because he saw Rudy was guarding him. And that play, he pump fakes into 2 free throws. Rudy bites on the fruit. So, and Rudy, every time he gets switched onto, like he's guarding a guard, he guards you like he's guarding like like it's like your little sister who's guarding you. They're constantly overrunning each side as they're trying to stay with the ball handler. That's the way Rudy guards. He doesn't know how to just stay down and just stay pat in his stance and not fall for those fakes, even this late in his career. So. Also, and this is why people keep talking about the accolade that he won in terms of Defensive Player of the Year. Like, if you can't switch on to small guys and you can get exposed this easily, I feel like Dallas is not like a super team. Dallas does not beat Denver, in my opinion, and I don't think Dallas maybe even beats like a healthy Lakers team for all we know, or healthy Golden State team. Like, I'm not saying they obviously couldn't, but all these teams, it feels like it's like a mishmash of teams, and I also just feel like Dallas, they have the 2 best players in the series on the same team. Like Anthony Edwards is the 3rd best player in the series. Like, and he's the 3rd best player, period. We've been all waiting for him to emerge, and he had a great regular season, but these guys, I mean, they both have proven it. Luka was in the Western Conference Finals last year with Brunson. Same role for Kyrie. Probably a better player in that role, Kyrie, than Brunson. Your thoughts on that? I mean, just in general, I feel like Dallas just has the veterans combined with the 2 best players.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite a lot of
I was definitely on my soapbox
there at the same time. But I'll try to break down the takes individually. The first one being, Naz Reid in the starting lineup. That's a tough move to make at this point. Karl Anthony Towns did play very, very well at the end of the Nuggets series. Obviously was instrumental in winning those last games and even keeping it close throughout the series. Obviously, Naz Reid has been excellent, but to your point, you kind of answered your own question of why would you mess with the 6th man of the year coming off, getting the minutes that he's used to, playing against other backups. All these things are a challenge. To break down the Gobert switching onto small things, I do think that it is this series where it's particularly creeping out because they do have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And when Luka Doncic is sizing up Rudy Gobert for the game-winning shot, it's obviously going to be a huge spotlight on that issue. And not for nothing, those guys are 2 of the best guards, 2 of the hardest to defend switching onto. So it puts basically anyone in a tough spot. Maybe Naz Reid would have been a slightly better matchup. But you can't just say like, "Oh, Rudy Gobert can't switch onto smalls," because
I said JJ Hardy.
That's one play, and that's one play in a whole series that you're pointing to as like he can't guard anyone now. That's not like
microcosm, but
it's a very small sample size to judge. A 4-time Defensive Player of the Year say, "Oh, that's a bad call. I'm not winning that award because JJ Hardy drew a foul." It's tough. It's tough to live up
assassinate the guy. Yeah.
It's tough to live up to an accolade if you're going to get judged on those kinds of metrics, of like, all right, this play happened, so now you don't deserve it anymore. It's tough. But I get where you're coming from where, you're down 2-0, maybe at least in game 3, try something different because you're going, on the road in game 3 in a win or basically you're eliminated. No one's ever came back from a 3-0 hole. And then moving forward onto, the Ant Edwards being the 3rd best player in the series, I think that it's tough to put him behind Kyrie Irving right now. But in this situation, maybe a conference final, 7-game series, he obviously has the experience. He's been to the promised land.
You can argue him over Luka actually for a playoff series. Let's be clear.
That's where I was about to go next. That was actually the argument I would say you couldn't make, at least after watching now, is that Luka Doncic has kind of established himself as maybe even underrated as a player. You look at his numbers, even his last series that they won against OKC.
Yes.
He was
9-9.
Yeah, I think OKC was maybe like 26-9-9, and it was like a bad series for him,
Right.
And now we've talked about his defense before on the show, maybe not being up to snuff, but it seems like in the playoffs, at least, I noticed in game 2 multiple times he deflected that Towns from Gobert or Towns to Gobert alley-oop twice at the end of the game that was working and working and working, and then he got involved and stopped it 2 times in a row for big stops. And maybe he's not a lockdown defensive stopper all the time, but he's maybe becoming that guy who can turn it on, towards the end of the game and lock in and be like, okay, this possession, I'm going to play as hard as I possibly can on defense. And, maybe being the scorer that he is, that's all they're going to need from him. But they've been extremely impressive. I didn't think they'd be OKC. We've talked about the Mavericks without Luka, without Kyrie. What do they really have? And these guys are stepping up. And the last person I'll shout out and kind of shout out the team at the same time, as you guys remember, last year they tanked at the end of the year. They didn't want to get into the play-in game because they wanted to have the better draft pick. Luka was upset. The league was upset. That draft pick they trade it, and they still get the guy they wanted, Lively, who's now coming in, playing big minutes, in this role. So it just shows kind of, they try to put in the playoff game to entice teams not to tank or whatever, but there are teams still that realize the trap of the play-in game is nothing. It's just you're not in the playoffs now. You don't really have a shot.
Extension of the regular season of sorts. Yeah. I agree with you. So, the last point I'll make about that series, and then we can move on to the East, is we're watching the final 2 teams in the whole NBA in the Western Conference. Like, everything's going to be under a microscope. So at no point was I saying that I agreed with those people that said Rudy Gobert didn't deserve the fucking trophy. Like, no, of course not. It's the whole regular season award. It's not even about what we're watching, to be honest. So
that's fair.
And then we're talking about the 2 final teams in the West. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's very impressive what Dallas is doing. Shout out Jason Kidd, doing a hell of a job, obviously, just exposing matchups and just letting them play the basketball that they want to play. It just seems like they have a very player-friendly coaching staff with Shammgod and all these guys. Like, it's exciting in Dallas. It's interesting. And Dirk's going to every game I've been seeing on the road and everything. They got an ambassador that's quite an ambassador. So, I'm sure.
Yeah, just to double down real quick, we glossed over it, but I think we agree that like Luke is really kind of coming into his own as just the true assassin of maybe the entire league.
Absolutely.
The guy at the end of the game it's almost like as a better version of like that old school Paul Pierce, maybe not even Paul Pierce when they won the championship, but like Paul Pierce when they played the Nets in like the early Eastern Conference Finals. Those years. Yeah, exactly. Where he just has that like step to the side pull up at the end of the game. It's just falling, 7 times out of 10.
Yeah, when the money's on the line, those are kinds of guys that you want with the ball. Yeah, absolutely. Him and Kyrie are both killers. So that's
absolutely.
Dangerous. I would say if you were going to make a list, those guys probably would be probably both in your top 5 easily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's, guys who put the game away, assassins, and, and not shout out the PJ Washingtons of the world, the Derek Joneses of the world.
Yeah.
Gafford. Yeah. Gafford is a guy I barely knew about in the regular season. And now seeing him
at the end of the game was nasty. Oh,
dude, him and Lively being almost the perfect matchup for Towns and Gobert defensively.
They're smart around the hoop. Then they're athletic. They just turn and dunk it, or they turn and they know how to move. They have good footwork. It's just it's good drafting. It's shout out to Mark Cuban and the whole staff. It's just they built something. They continuously put a good product out there. It feels like year over year, and everyone was shitting on them for what Brunson's done in New York, and they let Brunson walk out the door. But you see now, like, bigger plans and pretty impressive. And let's move to the East, though, because I got to give some love to your boy now. So I have to full admission. Here we go. So
all right. Well, I just want to say, sometimes the Knicks did well getting Brunson, and maybe the Mavericks did the right thing getting rid of Brunson. Everything isn't linear. Like, it's not like there's a winner and a loser every time. Sometimes both
I still
sides
think
win.
If Brunson's there, he's also another heart attack type of player. I think if he's there, they probably make a similar run. They did it last year, so there's no reason why I wouldn't think they wouldn't have done it again. But yeah, man, we got to move to the Boston-Indiana series. The series is looking like it's over. Indiana is playing Boston right now. It was tied at halftime last time I checked. So, I would say in terms of this series, first of all, shout out Jason Tatum for the last game's performance. I thought he played really well. I watched all of his highlights, and just the way he was playing. He was very engaged, passing the ball. He had a ridiculous pass from underneath the hoop on a behind the back, just like ridiculous to the corner for an open 3. I think that was for Al Horford. I mean, and Al Horford, shout out him, stepping up 7 threes in that game. I mean, as a 37-year-old, that's pretty ridiculous. And, you know, Boston is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Drew Holiday has been ridiculous gridlock on defense, as we all knew. You talk about Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that guy's just been waiting to win an award. If you're talking about who do we give it to, if it's not Rudy, then who? There's one name that we can say easily could deserve it any year. And Drew was just showing 4 steals in that game, I think it was. Just ridiculous all over the ball. And he made the crucial steal at the end of the game. So shout out to Boston doing what they're supposed to be doing and winning the games that they're supposed to win. And Tatum had a hell of a performance last game. I think it was like 35, 10, and 8, no turnovers. Ridiculous. Sick stat line. So, and Jaylen Brown, you can talk about Jaylen Brown, but shout out to Jaylen as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Brown's been an absolute monster in this series. We've seen him kind of maybe take the next step towards being a dominant scorer when they need him to be, not just this defensive stopper, 3-and-D kind of guy. Mm-hmm. You know, and Tatum, like you mentioned, has just become a 30 points, 10 to 12 rebounds, 8 to 10 assists, you know, throughout the second half of the last series into this series, you know. And, you know, we've heard the, you know, maybe warranted discussion about how this Celtics team is playing against maybe inferior competition. We've talked about it ourselves, the Eastern Conference this year not being up to snuff. But, you know, Indiana has shot the ball well and played well. And, you know, obviously those other series were 4-1, you know, gentlemen sweeps, and now they have gotten to 11-2 in the playoffs. We've talked off the air, even in the regular season, when you got teams like the Wizards coming to town and, you know, the Hawks, the Pistons. If you could put together an 11-2 run, you're finishing with about 70 wins, you know, so there's nothing to sneeze at in terms of this run. You can only play who's in front of you. Yeah, maybe they've kept it a little close, but now the pundits ourselves can't say, oh, they haven't played any close games. You know, they've won an overtime game. They've won a 3-point game. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If they blow everybody out every game, they'll get the criticism, oh, they're not battle-tested going into the finals. Now that kind of narrative is at least quieted a little bit.
So let's so I want to talk about Dallas versus Boston, since they're both 3-0, and statistics would say that that's going to be the matchup. So just to look forward a little bit in terms of like these two teams, Luka, Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, it will come down, obviously, as we know, to the supporting cast, but it feels like the whole playoffs has been all about the supporting cast. This whole playoffs that's all this playoffs has been about since the first round, I would say. Just other guys been stepping up, whether it's like random guys too on every team. Let me think, like Garland or whatever on Cleveland. You got random guys on the Knicks like DiVincenzo. You think about guys like Naz Reid. You think about guys like Gafford and Lively, like we were just talking about, PJ Washington. I feel like so many role players are getting their shine this playoffs because of so many injuries. And on Indiana, Nembhard, what he did the other night, that was like 30 plus. They could have won that game in game 3, I thought. So, I mean,
yeah, definitely. I mean, before we get too much into the actual finals preview, because like you said, it is 3-0. No one's ever come back before. It's pretty safe to say these teams are going to move on.
Which team do you think could come back if there was going to be a team between those two teams to come back?
I mean, I'd have to argue the Wolves. I just think they're a better overall team with a better on a game-to-game chance to beat the Mavericks as opposed to the game-to-game chance the Pacers have to beat the Celtics. The Pacers have been bringing their A game to the Celtics and just falling short, as opposed to the Timberwolves, who have been kind of playing bad. I know we gave Ant Edwards a little shine for his defense, but offensively, at least, you know, it's a C- kind of performance from him so far in the series.
Same with Towns.
So they're not playing. And obviously credit to the Mavericks defense, but even with crediting their defense, there are good looks, good opportunities that they aren't, you know, hitting. Like I said, I want to shout out the Pacers. You know, I don't want the Pacers fans to think we're haters. This has been a great, you know, run for them. Not, you know,
I'm a hater.
They got a chance. But you know, they've taken a good step this year, and I think that they got a pretty decent future ahead of them. But they probably need one more real talented player, and it's going to be hard to get one of those guys to go to Indiana.
And that's if Siakam re-ups with them.
Yeah, if Siakam re-ups, yeah. So they still need another one after that, and that's going to be tough. Like I said, who wants to really live in Indiana when they could live somewhere else?
Right, exactly. But I think they have a cool team, and you know, they did some good work drafting. Nesmith, Nembhard, some of these guys, they have some talent.
Even adding a guy like McConnell to the bench whenever they made that move,
play.
you know,
perfect Indiana piece. Yeah, perfect Indiana piece.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, getting into the finals, fuck it. We're gonna go ahead and say it. It's Mavericks Celtics.
Yeah.
You know, Kyrie Irving getting maybe some revenge here. But I mean, it's tough because obviously, you know, the Celtics have been that, you know, kind of train running down the track all season. But now the Mavericks are the team in the playoffs that seem to be on this like run of destiny. That it's you know, this is like, wow, no one saw it coming. Now all of a sudden they're one game away from the NBA Finals, and they look like they are the train actually.
Yeah, I would say Dallas, this is a matchup thing that's working well for them right now. They're exposing the bigs on Minnesota and just stretching them out in terms of just playing one-on-one basketball. They also play one-on-one basketball in sync. So even if it's one-on-one, the Luka and Kyrie still look for the corners. So, and the alley. So I think the way Luka and Kyrie are engaged in offense in their one-on-one fashion, because it's not like traditional one-on-one, it's things off of the one-on-one. It feels like it's like they're going one-on-one, but there's other action happening that's setting up a corner three or setting up an alley-oop to Gafford or Lively or whatever it might be, or kick out to the other person, Luka driving Kyrie on the kick out or whatever, vice versa. So I feel like the way their offense has been, their rhythm has been so good. And if Boston thinks that they're just going to outscore Dallas, that's where Boston can get into trouble. Boston can beat Dallas, I think, in 5 games if they play core, like good defense. They get into them and play physical on defense. I think that's where they have the advantage. If they don't play and engage on defense and they kind of just do a track meet and try to just outshoot them out the gym, which is what they've kind of been doing with the Pacers a little bit, and they're just a better team and they shoot a lot of threes, I think that's where they can probably get into trouble with Dallas. I think if they try to not really stay down and stay engaged and they think that they can just kind of just go up and down the court or whatever, which is not their DNA because Drew Holiday and Al Horford, these guys are engaged. Jaylen Brown are engaged on defense. Derek White. I mean, it's a great series. I mean, that roster is so good, so I would be surprised if Boston didn't win. But Luka and Kyrie, again, I believe, are the 2 best players in the series between those two teams. I think I take those 2 over Jason Tatum in the series.
I definitely could agree with that. I think that I've doubted the Mavericks against OKC. I've doubted the Mavericks against Timberwolves. I think it's time to wake up and stop doubting the Mavericks. I think that they have a very good shot in the series, and this series will be 7 games, you know, at the fewest 6. I think that this is going to be a close back and forth battle. Mm-hmm. And if the Celtics maybe come out and especially drop one of the first 2 games at home, all of a sudden this is destined for 7. I think that it's going to be an opportunity for the Celtics to kind of earn their place as, all right, we were this dominant team, we showed up. But I also think it's the opportunity for the Mavericks to say, hey, no one thought we were going to, you know, have a shot at this coming in here. And all of a sudden we've smoked teams and now we're here. And if Luka gets, like you said, you mentioned the outscoring. I mean, I think that's one of the first things we talked about. We talked about the Mavericks on this podcast was the Mavericks can score. Mm-hmm. Luka Doncic can give you 45 in his sleep. Kyrie Irving can obviously, you know, score 15 points in 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then they got these, you know, role players who either the bigs who are smart and can catch the ball well, or they got the PJ Washingtons getting open and dropping buckets.
And Kleber's coming back. I just read Max Kleber. So that's another stretch big that can hit the 3.
Yep, and who knows if they even need him at this point, the way they're rolling. But I think that Boston has the tools, but they're going to have to play better defense than they have been playing. As much as I do give credit to Indiana, it seems like they have been getting a lot of open shots. And what we've talked about is like their offense now has opened up a little bit more from that, you know, ISO, ball dominant usage kind of team. Mm-hmm. They still have that in their back pocket for when they get into a drought. All right, let's just ISO Luka and get a bucket here, which I don't know if the Celtics have that same type of advantage with Tatum or Brown in isolation. They're more like to draw fouls. They kind of need the refs on their side a little bit, as opposed to Luka, who can just pull up from that mid-range and drop a bucket in your face.
I think when Brown's driving and he's getting to the free throw line, he can hit jump shots. I think it's much more difficult for him just to start out shooting on fire during the game. He feels like a guy that needs to, like, it takes him a couple minutes to get into his rhythm, but he's definitely a guy that can catch fire. Tatum's a guy that can definitely cook, like just like Luka can in terms of that one-on-one and get into his dribble. And also he plays in the post, like he plays in, I would say, like 15, 20 feet. He can play there with his back to the basket at will. So I assume they're going to double Tatum every time he catches it in the post if they end up doing that. I'd be interested to see if Porzingis plays in this series. It's also a revenge series for him in a sense, so because he was on Dallas. But that also makes me think that Mavs might have a nice recipe for him because they obviously let him walk out the door for a reason, whatever the case may be, personalities that we heard about. But that will definitely be chippy, I'm sure, between him and Luka. So I'm here for all of it. I hope Porzingis plays, and I think that could favor Dallas if it does get into one of those things because Luka is a guy that when he's angry, he's very scary. When he gets into that real mode where he's just like he's very upset, it feels like there's nothing on the court that he can't do, and he's in control. Like the guy's been a professional since he's been 14 years old or 15 years old. Like this guy, like people think these are big moments for him. Like he's been screamed at through all these Real Madrid crowds or whatever the fuck in Europe, like going everywhere playing basketball since he was a 15, 16-year-old. I mean, I think the NBA Finals is a big stage, but he's built for it. I mean, he's ready, and Kyrie's done it already. Kyrie hit the game winner in Game 7 of an NBA Finals against the Warriors. So, or was that Game 6? I think that was Game 7. That was Game 7.
I think it was Game 7 as well. But just getting it to Luka again real quick, we talk about all these young guys in the league. We talk about, SGA. We talk about Edwards. And, yes, these are young superstars. But I think people forget that Luka Doncic is only 25 years old. This guy is still barely, getting into the prime of his career, probably hasn't even hit it yet, and is dominating at this level. And is kind of getting to the point where he's the boogeyman. You see him with the ball at the end of the game, you're on the other team. You must be scared. You must be looking at like, man, what's our play after he hits this? Because he's becoming that guy. He's becoming the number one. And, I don't know if I think they're going to win this series, but I'm going to be pulling for the Mavericks. Not that I hate the Celtics or, anything like that. I respect the Celtics. I've been a Tatum defender, not necessarily because I like Tatum, but just because I think the amount of hate that he gets is, he's another guy who's only probably 26 years old. He's not much older than Luka and has been killed, So
Tatum age.
But yeah, I mean, I think that he's 26.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's another young guy, but I like both these teams. I think it's fun to see kind of some new winners, out of these groupings. We're either going to see, Tatum and Brown get that mountaintop, or Luka and some of these young guys, but mainly Luka, because obviously Kyrie's already been to the mountaintop.
Yeah, but that would be big for Kyrie's resume too. A second championship without LeBron. That's that's huge. I'm sure in his world that feels good. And
yeah, I mean, I think to most of us, if you watch that, you'd be like, man, that is Kyrie's championship as much as it is LeBron's. But
100%.
If you maybe were a little younger and you didn't see it, if you could just be like, oh, that he rode LeBron's coattails, that
the
narrative
celebration and everything. Cleveland, this is for you. Like the whole hoopla of him being from Cleveland ruins everything. It being about Kyrie, even though we basketball fans know better and we know that if there's no Kyrie, there is no championship. So
yeah, like I said, it was an even thing. Not like LeBron doesn't deserve credit either. He was a monster, but obviously he needed Kyrie. He needed Kevin Love to have big moments.
They all needed each other. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, but it would be nice to have one without, LeBron, without, or anytime you can win a championship on two different teams is pretty legendary.
Absolutely. That's a resume. That's something. That is something for sure. But you want to move to hockey?
Absolutely. You got the jersey on. Why don't you kick it off?
Oh my God. I know all you Florida Panther fans out there were thinking that as soon as you guys tied it at 4-4 with all that momentum, the home crowd and everything, that you guys were going to take it from us. And if you watched that final 5 minutes of that third period, I'm sure you had a heart attack just like we did as Ranger fans. I mean, that was some of the scariest hockey to watch because it just felt like Rangers were playing for overtime and playing not to lose instead of to win. And that's always scary. So I feel like they had icing maybe 7 times in the last 5 minutes. I just felt like I was putting my head in my hat. Like I just couldn't even watch at some points at the end of the game. But talk to me, John. How are we feeling about after this big dub in Florida?
I mean, that was incredible. Igor, again, stands on his head. But Bobrovsky, there was a point in time that third period where he didn't even see a shot for like a 10-minute span. Like the Rangers couldn't even get a shot off. It was something crazy, like 100 total shots for the Panthers. Like insanity.
Like 40 on goal or whatever.
Yeah. And like 30 shots for oh my goodness, his name's escaping me now, but one of the guys on the Florida had 30 shots himself. Yeah, 30. No, not Kachuk. The other guy on that line. Oh man, it's gonna bother me. Hang on, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
All right, but look it up. I saw this. I did see that stat though, that it was like 100 shots just in general. So for you fans out there, that doesn't mean it's 100 shots on the goalie. That just means it's 100 shots towards the net. It could be deflected by a defender, and Igor never sees it. That still counts as a shot. But in terms of shots on net,
it was Carter Verhaeghe. He took 30 shots, and there were like 7 on target, and I want to say like 10 of them were in that third period. Just pepper, and 5 of them were on the one power play in the third period. It was absolutely crazy. The game was so back and forth. The Rangers again give up the first goal, score the next 2, then Florida scores. New York scores the next 2. Florida scores the next 2. It goes into overtime, and it is, again, even the beginning of overtime, looks like the Panthers are getting more shots off. And then you see, Wenberg, who's kind of like a fourth line, even like switching in
Tarasenko's number. We love that from last year.
And a deflection off almost the middle of his stick, just perfect placement right into the net. No chance for Bobrovsky. And, that game was one of the best hockey games I've probably ever seen. Just a back and forth. It's crazy to see 2 goalies stand up and there still be a 5-4 game. We mentioned, in our group chat how the Rangers, maybe top 4 offensive options, didn't have an assist or a goal, and they still scored 5 goals.
That's Kreider, Mika, Panarin, and Fox.
Yeah, those guys did not do really anything all game. And for guys like Goudreau and obviously Lafreniere and then Wenberg.
Lafreniere. So good. Laf was zoned in the whole game. Oh, my God, from puck drop. Like, he was just – it just felt like he was itching the whole game for goals. I loved what I saw from Laf all game. Great game for him.
Oh, really absolutely. Nice. Still a lot of series left. Again, I mean, I've already mentioned it, but both goalies really are just spectacular. I think we can, get away from Vasilevsky being the best goalie in Tampa Bay now. I think these 2 guys are basically playing for it this series, and Igor's had the nod so far. It's also crazy that Panarin and Bobrovsky are so close. I've seen videos of them like dancing together on boats, like doing weird Russian shit. Yeah. But those guys are funny to me, and I hope Panarin's not sandbagging it because they're friends or something. I can't even see him out there.
I'm arriving there. I'm gonna have Trouba just check him on a blind side and see if he wakes him up. Like just self hit.
I don't know what's going on. We talk about those guys not getting points, but Panarin, it looks like Liz lost. Like he's like turning the puck over. He's going off sides.
He's my favorite guy to hate on, so I hate hating on him because I hate on him so much, and I'm really a big Panarin hater. But I'll be honest, him and Fox, I've been hating on heavy. I feel like Fox is hurt from that series, from that hit he took, that knee-to-knee contact. He seemed like he was hurt after that play against the Capitals, and he's just gutting it out. But not real a lot of production from him. Panarin had a couple assists in one game, whatever, this and that. So he hasn't been like totally disengaged, but haven't seen him put one behind Bobrovsky. And until I see that, I think you're on the take. I don't believe you. And then we trade you in the offseason because we're the Rangers and we'll find somebody. And even if you let us in goals this year, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll find someone else. But anyway, and we saw also Panther fans, we saw this Panthers trying to hit Rempe after the game was already over when he's coming out just to celebrate with his boys and he's getting fucking checked by you guys. We see all the dirty shit. Like, we're coming. And we know you guys are afraid. We know you guys are feeling the pain. We're up 2-1. Rangers are here. That's a game we would have lost the last couple of years, and we won that. And I'm proud of 4-0 in the fucking overtimes. I mean, that's money.
Yeah. 4-0 in the overtimes. Another shorthanded goal also. I mean, we must be pretty close in terms of penalty kill goals for other teams and shorthanded goals for us in this playoffs. Like, I can't imagine our opponents have more than 2 power play goals.
Is 7 for every other team, 5 for us in terms of shorthanded goals. I remember seeing when they put up.
Yeah. I think the next closest team is 2. Like 2 teams are tied with 2 shorthanded goals. We have 5, and I doubt we allowed more than 7 power play goals this playoffs. So
we were much better earlier rounds. This series has been getting us on the power play. They've been getting us. Reinhardt.
I know we gave up 2 last game, and I know we gave up 1 the entire series versus Washington. I don't think we gave up any in the first series. So
no.
So I think
the penalty kill boys the first series for sure. What's it called? Florida was the penalty kill boys on us for most of this series. To be honest, I think the whole series. But I don't think we've scored on the power play, have we?
I'm having trouble thinking about it right now, but we haven't had a lot of power plays. Also, we haven't been drawing a lot of penalties. We thought we had one at the end of the game, at the end of the third period, and then Meek actually hit himself in the face with his stick, or a great check by
bleeding and shit.
Wild. But yeah, I mean, they have a great team. That was a great check there by Barkov. Barkov is all over the place. Tkachuk is good. Reinhart, like you mentioned, Sam Bennett, Verhaeghe. And then Tarasenko has played his way to the bench. It's crazy.
Yeah. Reinhardt's special. Watching him skate around is pretty unbelievable. He's so fast, man. It's insane.
Yeah, 57 goals this year. The most since Pavel Bure. That's an insane number. He was second after Austin Matthews in goals scored this year. So obviously a threat. This series is far from over. I know we're celebrating now, but there's obviously more work to be done. Another game in Florida and then back to the Garden. Hopefully if we get to the Garden up 3-1.
I have already in my mind, now that we won this game, in my head now I'm 7 in the Garden. We're just destiny there because
my take for the next game is the Rangers either go, win another, heartbreaker, ice to ice, everything on the edge of your seat, or the Panthers just come out and just blow the
Rangers. 4-1. Yeah. Could. But I think the Rangers have been playing really good in terms of just not letting the game slip away. You know what's funny? Those 2 goals, the 2 early goals, we were losing 1-0. I went to the bathroom. I'm not even kidding. I went to take a shit. By the time I came out of the bathroom, it was 2-1. I called our boy Casey and I was like, what just happened? And he was like, yeah, they just put 2 behind the net. Life is nasty. And I saw the replay of the backhand. I started screaming in my house. It was happened so quick. So I give the Rangers are very resilient, and I think that's over the years what they've built as well. These past couple of years, they've been knocking on the door heavily, and Tampa's been closing the door on their face a lot. And I think now that Tampa's out of the way and they're kind of emerging, even without, like we said, the best 4 players actually playing well, they're getting these wins. If those 4 players can turn the knob and we can actually get into some real hockey, I think we could actually put it on them and get a statement win and go up 3-1 going back to the house and really show people what the Rangers are about this year, winning the President's Cup and whatnot. So, I think Rangers of years past, this is 100% a loss in Game 4. I don't even feel like I have to watch the game, to be honest. But with Igor in net, I just feel like we always have a chance. I mean, you were talking on it, and that's the facts.
Yeah, no, I mean, Igor, build a statue. Igor is that guy.
I'm good.
I'm all about Igor.
Lundqvist to Igor, best transition of all time. Would you say for goalie generation? I
mean, I can't say I'm a hockey historian like that, but if I can't imagine there'd be much better example. It's there 2 obviously Vezina Trophy candidates every year. Guys who come out there and dominate. And even though he gave up 4 goals, he was still standing on his head, making ridiculous saves, especially early in the game.
At the end of the third period, that one save he made up front, that was ridiculous. I don't know how he made that save. There was one specific one.
It's incredible watching both of these guys to show what being a great goalie is not only do they make great saves with their gloves, their blockers, kick saves, stretch saves, but in terms of the angles, they just take everything away. They are, if you don't have a perfect one-timer, or a perfect deflection or just a perfect wrist shot with an angle, they're not, I know Igor had one put through his legs, this last game, but those are just kind of every once in a while you get deked like that, and you have to make a move to deke him like that. Just regular shots are not going to fall through the cracks with these guys. They are cutting off everything, and you have to hit perfect connections to score, and it's beautiful to watch. Do you have any takes on the other series? I know we got the game going on right now. I believe it's tied.
It's tied right now.
Yeah, it's tied. Dallas just scored. Okay,
Dallas just scored. I mean, I think I told you off air. I think Dallas is going to win the series. I think if the Oilers win the series, that would be better for the Rangers. If the Rangers get through Florida, obviously as a Ranger fan, but I'd much rather face the Oilers. I feel like Dallas is a more complete team, also a team that's been knocking on the door last couple of years. So Yeah, they were the number 1 seed in the West. I mean, this is chalk. We're at this point. McDavid's the best player in hockey. Second best player in hockey could be on his team as well. Drysdale, you can argue him, McKinnon, some other guys maybe, but definitely McDavid being the first guy there. So it's sick. I mean, it's great for hockey. They're so fucking lucky. I mean, the commissioner's probably smiling. Like, you got the Florida Panthers, nice up-and-coming team that built a lot of steam last year, making the Stanley Cup, and they've been good. They've been good even as an 8 seed last year, so they made a crazy run, got a lot of hoopla around them, and now they're coming back now. And now you got the Rangers, obviously New York, and then you got Connor McDavid, the best player in hockey, getting some shine, getting some national television shine so people can see how filthy he is. And then you got, with Draisaitl, obviously have to shout out, and then you got the Dallas Stars, who are the number 1 team in the West this year. So it's exciting. I think that Dallas will eventually get through, though, for sure. And if they win this one, I mean, it's all but over, I feel like, at that point, because, I mean, you're still in one on the road. You're just putting the pressure on. You'll be up 2-1. And they just scored 3 in a period. Dallas is filthy. Yep. Yeah, Ben, some of these guys, Johnston. I mean, Wyatt is ridiculous. Wyatt Johnston is another guy that we need to be talking about, who's just absolutely filthy. And he's a pretty boy, too, so it hurts even more. He's like a Jack Hughes type. And that always hurts. If they're like a hockey player looking guy, I always feel like it's all right. But like when they're pretty boys, I feel like guy like Sidney Crosby, like you want to fuck him up. Like you really want to hit him type shit versus like an Ovechkin. Like that guy would probably fuck you up, to be honest.
But these are the guys that you see in hockey all the time, the pretty boys versus, the guys with no teeth. These are the kind of matchups we love. I've had Dallas go into the finals since the beginning of the playoffs. That was my take. I'm going to stick to it, but I'm almost kind of cheering for Edmonton. One, for, having that Canadian team back in the Stanley Cup. It has been forever since the Canadian team has won. Obviously, I wouldn't be cheering for them to win if they're playing the Rangers, but either way, just back in that conversation, standing up for Canada, who's been kind of bullied by, the USA and the NHL recently for the last 20 or so years. And then obviously for McDavid, because he has that narrative of can't win the big one. It's a little different in hockey because of, you play in lines, you come off the game, you're only on the ice for so much of the game. It's not like basketball, football, but still at the same time, you want to see someone with his talent, his ability.
Unless it's like an overtime, and let's like an overtime in the playoffs, and when you need a goal, and then that's right, he did score the goal in the overtime to win. So if you need, if you need one, exactly, he can have the direct effect, but you're right, 100%. It's a different sport. It's not like.
But still, for him to be a guy, getting talked about in like the GOAT conversations already, like you want, 100 assists in a season. This kind of guy, like you need that Stanley Cup trophy to really cement your spot. So he'll have that opportunity, depending on how the rest of the series goes. But they're obviously still in it. But in terms of the Western Conference, we'll see how it goes. But I'm just waiting to see.
Who do you have winning? You're rooting for Edmonton, but who do you think is going to win? Like,
I have the Stars. I mean, I had the Stars, like I said, before the playoffs started in my like little pool. I had Stars, Rangers in the finals.
I had the Avs. I always like the Avs.
I mean, they were a powerhouse last year. There's no need to pick against them, but I just hearing a few podcasts here and there. I'm not, like I said, a huge hockey fan, especially regular season. The NHL playoffs, I'm locked in. I'm watching as much as I can, but going into it, I like the Stars. I kind of, like I said, I heard the whispers from people that know better than me. So I kind of just rode with that and put the Stars in the ticket for, to win the Western Conference, and we'll see how that goes.
Dallas, bro. This is fucked up, dude. 2 fucking teams in Dallas. Yeah, the Cowboys are just looking out the window like fucking Squidward.
Not to mention the Rangers just won the World Series last year.
And the Rangers, bro. Dallas Cowboys are feeling low. Squidward is chilling upstairs, bro, looking out the window.
The fucking
Dallas on fire right now, to be honest, outside the Cowboys. Fire.
I mean, the fucking Giants can't even fucking sniff a playoff game, so.
Oh, here we go. See, you can't even take it. I'm talking about the Stars, and I'm talking about the Mavs, and here we go. Relevant versus irrelevant. We're irrelevant. Don't you get the difference? Dallas is a relevant place right now.
Yeah, and the Cowboys, will win the division again. We'll see. The NFC East, nobody ever repeats the division, so
we'll see.
But we got time. We're jonesing for football, obviously, but
always
we got to wait a little longer.
Always jonesing for football, bro. We got 101 days till football.
Oh my god!
The more you know.
I'm gonna check the score of the basketball game real quick.
Check it, and then check the hockey game as well. You never know. Things change on a dime in hockey. You could take a shit, come out, and then your team could be winning. That's how it works, baby. Rangers.
That was probably nice shit.
Hell yeah. Pondered the win.
Oh, looks like the Pacers are up 3 to end the third quarter. So they're just coming out into the fourth now.
All right, you let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Still 3-2 in the hockey game, and the Pacers up 3.
Pacers probably still won at home there.
We'll see.
Is what's his name playing? Halliburton?
I don't think so. No.
You gonna say another game?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Ugh.
That's your boy?
No, it's just in terms of Boston. Like, what are we watching? Every fucking series with this team. Best player, the second best player, both out. What the hell? Anyway, all right, here we go. Hots is in the Hots corner tonight for all you Sixers out there, so let's be clear. Rank these players if they never got injured. Derrick Rose, Tracy McGrady, Penny Hardaway, Brandon Roy.
I say Derrick Rose, Tracy McGrady, Penny Hardaway, Brandon Roy.
That is the order?
Yeah, the exact order that you said them.
Okay. Starting a franchise, who would you take? Connor McDavid or McKinnon?
McDavid.
Overall all-time better coach, Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay?
Sean McVay.
Rank these restaurant options: Italian, steakhouse, Japanese, Mexican.
Italian, steakhouse, Mexican, Japanese.
Coffee, tea, beer, protein shake. Which of these could you live without?
I could live without coffee, I could live without tea, and I could live without protein shake. And I could live without beer, but that would be the last one I'd pick.
All right. Just ask for one there. You know.
Yeah.
Name your least favorite state or country you've traveled to.
This is a good question. I would say probably just one of those drive over states that you maybe spend a day in. But if it's somewhere I've actually visited and spent
travel to. The idea in my head was flew to.
Oh, flew to. I would say probably California, honestly.
Best middle reliever of the 2000s.
Best middle reliever of the 2000s. Oh man, the best. I'll go with Hideki Arabu.
Interstellar or Inception?
Inception.
Curt Schilling or Greg Maddux?
Greg Maddux.
How many rings would the Warriors have won if Draymond wasn't on the team?
1 fewer.
All right, let's go through it. So I guess I should have mishmashed players a little bit more. I didn't even do it as like that. I was just thinking of players that got hurt and that were amazing.
No. I mean, it wasn't
it just happened to be that. I mean, you could probably say Tracy in front of Derek, maybe.
Well, the only thing I was thinking, I was in terms of how much injuries actually impacted their careers, I feel like Tracy McGrady had a pretty good run of a prime before he ever got really hurt.
He was scoring champion. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, as opposed to, and D Rose was an MVP, but it was just a shorter amount of time. It's he was probably had his first injury in maybe his 4th or 5th year, where I feel like McGrady had a good 8, 9, 10 years. So it's kind of more of the impact of it versus
I bet he already played more seasons though total. Thinking about it now.
Yeah, maybe over the longevity, but just in terms of who could have at their peak had their peak robbed from them.
Right.
He was an MVP at 21 or something like that. He's one of the youngest players to ever win MVP, and then got hurt shortly after.
Penny is a
Penny's up. Yeah, Penny's up there too. He was a little
he was amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah, no. It was a little
if you've never heard of Penny, Road 26ers, look him up. Penny Hardaway, the inside-out dribble move that he had was filthy, and he would step back for that jump shot. The way he was nasty. A big guard that could handle the ball.
Yeah, it's almost he was almost the other side of Derrick Rose, where he was more hurt throughout every year, little nagging injuries. He never really put it together as much. When he was on the court, he was great with Shaq. Would even say that was Shaq and Kobe before Shaq and Kobe with 100%. Shaq and Penny. Those Magic teams are awesome with Anderson, Scott Skiles,
Dennis
Horace
Scott,
Grant, Dennis Scott. The microwave. We got all those guys. Those were great teams, but I just think Penny was more like he never really proved it enough to be like he was going to be the guy of those guys.
And Brandon Roy, shout out, great player, another A player, I would say at his peak.
Yeah, I love Brandon Roy. He's like more of like injuries when they came to him hard. His career was over. Like it was not like you said with Derrick Rose, where he still played a bunch more seasons. It was over maybe. Yeah, I think Derrick Rose maybe had a comeback player or 6-man, stuff. At least is like in the discussion. Maybe one more
a year. That sounds right. Maybe on Minnesota or something like that, or Detroit, maybe something like that.
Maybe one more later All-Star. When Brandon Roy, it was just over. And he was a very good player. I remember him more of like a scorer, shooter than like a
combo guard. Yep.
Couldn't really set up his teammates maybe as much as some of those other guys. Wasn't really a defender as much as some of those other guys.
He was a handle shoot guy. He was a handle shoot guy for sure. Combo guy.
Pull up, catch and shoot.
Yep.
But definitely a lethal scorer, a big time shot maker, when it came down to the crunch. So great names, regardless of anything.
So the next one I asked you if you would start a franchise, would you start with McKinnon or McDavid? That was a Casey special. I was talking to him earlier. He was like, I was talking to him about doing the Hots Corner tonight. He was like, ask him if you would start with McKinnon or McDavid. I was like, all right. So
yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I like McDavid personally. I'm a McDavid fan. I love his game. So I think he's the best right now in hockey. I think he is special, in terms of all time. Like I said, it would help a lot to get that Stanley Cup, but right now I really don't think anybody's fucking with him.
No. Yeah, I agree with you. McDavid's ridiculous. He just looks different when he's on the ice. All you have to do is watch him a couple times. It's not really hard to see how he separates himself from every other player on the ice when he's out there full steam. So, agree. Even though I love me some McKinnon and I love me some Avs. All right, moving on. Overall, all-time better coach, Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay? So you said McVay, right? Because he won the big one, I'm assuming, and that's the reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big one. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's got Shanahan's number in the head-to-head matchups too, because I know in the NFC West it's one of those pyramids of the 49ers beat
the Rams, the Seahawks, and
the Seahawks beat the Rams. I think that's one of those things there. But I think McVay has had Shanahan's number. Obviously, they worked together in Washington, that famous Washington staff with him. McVay, Shanahan, McDaniels, all those guys who Washington never hired for whatever reason.
Matt LaFleur on Green Bay as well.
Yeah, so they had a great coaching tree there.
The Vikings too. What's his name?
O'Connell, Kevin O'Connell.
Another one, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of young, good, football minds. I just like McVay too. I think, he has a lot to do with the roster as well. And the fact that they were willing to go for it, willing to make moves for guys like Matt Stafford, willing to make moves for guys like Von Miller, willing to make moves for guys like Odell Beckham Jr., and just kind of we're going for it
Leonard
here.
Floyd, yeah, there's a lot of guys.
And they still don't have picks from that. They had no picks for a long time, and but they got it done. They won the championship, and that's all that matters once you get that ring. And I think they still, if they retool that quarterback, could rebuild a little bit, and we still see the roster development working with guys like Puka Nacua, with guys like the running back's name's
Kyron Williams, and
Kyron Williams,
Blake Corum now backing him up, who's a nice talent that they drafted from Michigan. So both of them, I think, will be a really nice duo for that offense.
And this isn't to badmouth Shanahan. Obviously, we know about the collapses. But
you're speaking to it though. You should. I wouldn't even taper off. I think you're speaking to it as the point is to win the big game, and look how hard it is. Kyle Shanahan has had a whole these fucking teams, and he's been reloading every fucking year to try to win. They've went to the Super Bowl or finished the game before it, and they've been right there on the door, but he's never won it. Kyle Shanahan has 0 rings as a head coach. So at the end of the day,
you know what?
That's it.
And I think the main thing that he's never had, and this comes down to maybe later on in the offseason, we'll talk more about it, but he's never had a quarterback. Is Brock Purdy the first quarterback who maybe if he takes another step can be that guy for Shanahan? The only thing I guess you could argue, if you want to say when he was a coordinator, he had Matt Ryan, but as a head coach, at a head coach, he's ripping with Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl. That's pretty crazy.
Jimmy is top 20 quarterback at his peak. I would say top 15 quarterback at his best. That's where we're at.
I mean, the top 15.
Top 15, maybe that's probably 15. He's probably 15.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? He's the middle of the pack type of guy.
Definitely never had a top, 5 elite quarterback. Like I said, Matt Ryan, you can make the argument for, but again, that's when he's a coordinator. He's not controlling necessarily everything. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you could say he lost with the great. Like he's always lost. He's never had a Super Bowl. He's never had a quarterback.
Right.
And like I said, you could maybe argue Matt Ryan, but even that was not like in his head coaching tenure. That was as a coordinator who really cares. That's yes, he maybe could have called better plays, but still, you got to put that on Dan Quinn if you're blaming a coach for a Super Bowl loss. You can't
100%.
start blaming coordinators.
No, absolutely not. And maybe you could blame him for some of the play calling, but you don't blame him as the overall person to blame. And yeah, so I think I would agree with you. Sean McVay is probably the answer. I also think Sean McVay started really the trend of the young coaches and like young coaches getting jobs and people taking young coaches serious like that who are under the age of 40, like because of his success early. So shout out to Sean McVay.
And not to mention a football savant, obviously like remembers every play from every game he's ever coached, grew up in the family of the 49ers dynasty. I think his grandfather was the GM or, an executive of the team. He's grew up around football. He's a football nut, football lifer. And, I would prefer to have McVay as my head coach if I was building a franchise.
For sure. All right. You did rank these restaurants. You said Italian, then steakhouse, then Mexican, then Japanese. So you don't eat sushi.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. Like hibachi, I like, but I don't really eat sushi, so I have it last. Mexican is decent, not like my go-to really. If anything, like I'm more. I think
your order is right. I think I agree with your order. I don't eat sushi either, so I'm kind of on the same page as you.
Yeah, I do like more like if I'm doing Mexican, I might be like more takeout. I'm not gonna go to like a Mexican restaurant and like sit down and order.
El Bandito and Suffern from back in the day. The more you know, Suffern, New York. El Bandito, shout out. Used to be fire. They used to have the little mariachi band in there. Come on, the Cokes, the glass bottle Cokes. What do you know? Come on, John.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I not a sit-down spot. Steakhouse and Italian are close, but I feel like Italian's classic. Steakhouse, it's sometimes could be hit or miss, and it's always going to be pricey. So, like, if I have a steakhouse that I love, that's like go-to, maybe that could eclipse the Italian. But if we're just going to like random Italian versus random steakhouse, like we're in a different city, we're trying stuff out, I feel like Italian. But then again, that could be regional.
Italian, you'll get a better result 9 more times than the steakhouse, I would say, if you're just doing it from blindly.
But this is also regional too. Like obviously, if you're in the Northeast, like you're almost always going to get a better Italian meal than you would in the Midwest, the West Coast, the South.
Steakhouse, like you said, is always overpriced. So if you end up getting only a mid meal for overpriced, that's what we're talking about. You might get a mid meal in an Italian spot, but it probably is mid prices more or less. Definitely going to be.
If you get a chicken parm, it's $20 to $30.
Chicken parm might not be amazing, but it's not going to be $50 of a T-bone that you're pissed off that's in front of you right now.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, this is like overcooked, and you're just mad. Or I asked for medium rare, and it's like totally rare, and you're like, oh, like now I got to figure out medium rare plus, so like, fuck that.
Oh my god, when they ask all those intricate questions, all of it, like, it's just like, bro, like, just however.
Do you want it Oscar style? Like, no, I don't want it Oscar style. Who the fuck is Oscar? I just want a steak.
All right, moving along. Coffee, tea, beer, protein shake. Which could you live without? You said you could live without tea, beer, and the protein shakes.
No, I don't drink coffee, I don't drink tea, and I don't drink protein shakes. I mean, every once in a while I'll grab maybe one from like the 7-Eleven. Yeah, out of those things, I drink more beer than all those other things.
I knew to add beer, so that's good.
But if I could live, if you're asking me if I could live without it, I could live without it. But it's the last thing that I give up on that list for sure.
The last thing I probably give up is protein shake, for sure. Coffee, tea, beer. Yeah.
Oh, you mean like I'm saying like the last thing, like the one that I'd want to keep the most.
Oh, the one that you want to keep the most? If that was the question, I would coffee.
Yeah, coffee. Yeah, I don't drink coffee.
Yeah, coffee for sure. I would say that's close between coffee and tea. Beer, I'm
like
good.
If I go out for breakfast, maybe if there's like a nice coffee, like I'll get like a nice like cappuccino kind of thing.
Yeah.
Espresso, like when I'm like go for like a late dessert.
Imagine none of that. No, what? Coffee's got to be there. You just sold me. Coffee's got to be there.
Yeah.
All right, moving along. Name your least favorite state or country that you've traveled to, which had an asterisk. I said flew to. So
yeah. I mean, because again, we could do like travel through states like Delaware, like West Virginia.
I was
like
more in my mind like a vacation that you traveled to, something that you traveled to, like
like a place where a lot of people live. Like I think probably California's. I just don't love the pace, But this is also Southern California. I never really been to Northern California, so
similar in San Francisco and San Diego. They're both slow, and a lot of just people just apparently have nowhere to go.
Slow. So slow. It was like I felt like mind numbing. Like I remember being at like a red light, and there was like no cars for like you could see for miles. And there's like 20 people all waiting for the walk sign to switch on to like let them walk, and I'm just like, I'm fucking walking. Like I don't see any cars. Like I got somewhere to be. Like what are all these people just standing here waiting?
They do the same thing out here in the Bay Area. They'll just stand there and wait for however long, whatever it is.
Or it's like the left hand. You're waiting to make a left on like a green light, and like naturally you creep out, and then like if it just turns red you just go. It's
turning yellow and you're under the light. That's the move.
You just go, but they like won't even go into the middle of the intersection.
No, they wait at the of course, yeah,
right at the line, and then like make a left. Like
and then you're fucked, and then they go straight through and burn a light, and you're stuck at the front of the line. Then
and they'll sit there. They'll sit there for a whole light if they never have a good time to go. Like you'll just wait for the next whole light. It's terrible.
I scream at people. I used to scream at people like crazy because I'm a crazy New Yorker like that. But Christy made me stop doing it because at the end of the day, like it's just never going to change. Like there's nothing you can do. You're just a part of this Tesla mess. Anyway,
nothing good is going to come from it.
Yeah, nothing. All right, moving along. Best middle reliever of the 2000s. So who did you say?
Hideki Irabu, a Yankee.
Hideki Irabu. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a great name. Middle reliever. That was that. I didn't think of Hideki Irabu. Jeez.
Because I'm not even thinking setup man, like or no setup man, no closer, like legit like
a
2 inning.
Reliever.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking like Ramiro Mendoza. That was my guy.
Yeah, that's another good one. Hideki Irabu might even be a little bit before the 2000s. Yeah, I thought about it. I feel like I thought about him, but he got some setup man time as well.
And he was just so good. That's why he got moved to setup man. I think he would probably even close the game, I'm sure, at one point.
Definitely got some close, especially with the Mariners.
Seattle, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely closed some games. Some other guys like that, like you said, Ramiro Mendoza is a great name.
It was a good one on Atlanta. I forget what his name was, but he was so good.
Kerry Lightenberg was.
Yeah, would Franco count? No, he was more like a save guy.
I would say he's more closer. Definitely not, if not closer, setup man. Turk Wendell was a good one for the Mets.
Was a good one. Yeah,
he came in with the shark tooth teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Middle relievers, there's not a lot of room in my brain for middle relievers to be.
They don't exist as much anymore. That's why I mentioned the question, because it's mostly starter into setup or starter into couple inning guy into setup closer.
Well, now there's more because also now a lot of teams use openers, and they'll have a guy come in and pitch 3 innings and then 3 innings.
First now, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So a lot of people, a lot less guys are going 7 innings anymore. Now it's usually 5 or 6 is the normal start. So. It's like almost like every reliever can be the setup man, can be the closer. Now it's less defined.
Situation. Yeah,
it's less defined bullpens for the most part. Yeah, there's still teams who have like their main closer, but like any guy can come out and close the game for almost any team at this point. Besides those real dominant closers, the few that are left. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much every team.
I mean, the Yankees turned Clay Holmes into a closer. He wasn't really like the closer on the Pirates. Like he was the closer, but I thought he was also the setup man on that team.
Yeah, exactly. They, interchangeable roles, like you said. And now like even Clay Holmes, like there's going to be games where other people save games. Like we see with the Phillies, they got Hoffman, and then they also have what's his name, Alvarado. Obviously the Mets have Diaz, but you're not surprised to see other guys come back there.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Throughout the obviously like you said, matchups lefty on lefty. It's all analytics now, so we don't have those true defined, like even like a long reliever now is probably going to get starts and like a 6-man rotation.
If I ask the question, just to change the question for a second, if I said best middle reliever of today, who would you say?
Oof. Man, there's some good ones. I like Matt Strahm a lot for the Phillies because he'll come in and get some starts too also. You know, he's definitely someone who could come in, eat innings. You know, like I said, your first starter goes, you know, gets a blister. You know, in the second inning, he could come in and pitch for 4. I always like Matt Strahm. He's probably my number 1 guy right now.
That's a good name. All right, keep it moving here. Interstellar or Inception?
I mean, I'm an Inception guy. I never even think I saw Interstellar, honestly. I'm not a big space movies guy. I do like The Martian, to be fair, and I like Moon.
You don't like space? You don't like Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Oh my god, I'm clipping this.
Yeah, no, I'm not like a Star Wars nerd. I won't say that I dislike it, but I'm not like, oh, Star Wars. But Star Wars is even a little different than what I'm talking about, because Star Wars is like, there's also they land. Like, I don't like the movies where the whole thing is land. Like they're on planets. Like, I don't like movies where the whole thing is like on, you know, a spaceship or whatever they're called. You know,
Spaceballs though is the best.
Spaceballs was a classic, like, comedy. You know, like I said, I like The Martian a lot, which is like, I usually don't like movies where there's a
Martian. Is that Matt Damon?
Yeah.
Oh my god, what? You like The Martian, but you don't like Interstellar?
Like I said, I watched it once and like it didn't like stick with me. I love The Martian's great. The Martian is excellent.
Really? You like The Martian? Okay.
But I like Moon too with Sam Rockwell. If you've never seen it, awesome movie. Moon, just Moon. With Sam Rockwell. Oh, it's a classic. It's like he's going crazy in space. But usually I don't like a small cast. Generally, that's like, I don't love that in movies.
Oh, the one with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock, I think it was Gravity. Horrible. It was probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I
thought that space. You could have told me that movie was Interstellar, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's the Interstellar."
No, that's disrespect. I can't do this.
So what is Interstellar? Give me the
Interstellar is essentially about how it's like time travel-y, I would say, in a sense. It's definitely time travel, but it talks about how, based on where you go into the universe and what black holes and things that you go into, it can lead you to basically becoming prosperous towards your own life, because you go ahead and can see what can happen. Essentially, it's weird. It's like I don't know how to explain it, but it's basically about black holes and in like the deep parts of space and where that leads you.
So it's more sci-fi than what I'm remembering it as, like people in outer space on a
100% has a lot of sci-fi characteristics, a lot of things that connect at the end. That start in the beginning, you see different things happen, and then everything connects at the end type of movie.
But not for nothing, let's not disrespect Inception. Inception is a good movie.
Oh, yeah. Good. That's fair. Yeah, that's true, because I want to be clear that Inception is a great movie, too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very good movie. And an original idea in, you know, what, the mid-2000s, like an idea I hadn't heard before about, like, stealing people's ideas from their dreams or planting an idea in their dreams. Like, that's a cool concept. Christopher Nolan, I want to say.
Yeah, for both. Yeah, so Christopher Nolan,
Interstellar
and Inception. So that was the idea. But yeah, I mean, he's goated, obviously. Batman, obviously, he's the man. I'm also thinking that Anne Hathaway's a problem. That's the biggest reason why someone would pick Inception over Interstellar, because they can't stand Anne Hathaway. And you know, it's Anne Hathaway, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike her that much. You know, she's got some bangers out there.
I jab her anytime I can. Fuck Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, not a Hathaway.
No, I'm not a Hathaway guy.
Did Christopher Nolan do Memento, or was that Jonathan Nolan? I want to say maybe Jonathan Nolan wrote it and Christopher Nolan made it.
Memento director. Let's see. It's Nolan. Yeah, that's right. Christopher Nolan.
It's Christopher Nolan, but I want to say Jonathan Nolan wrote it, though.
Wrote it?
Yeah.
The writer? I don't see. Memento's a classic. That's like a psychology, more like real. Guy Pearce wrote that, I think, though.
Well, Guy Pearce, I know is
John Nolan and Chris Nolan both wrote it.
Yeah, I think so. Jonathan Nolan, I'm just looking up now. He wrote like a short story, which became the movie. Like So then Christopher Nolan probably took that and made it a screenplay. But I mean, it's cool that there's a lot.
He's got like a crazy brother locked up in his basement that's feeding him the ideas.
He's just coming up with all the movies.
Dude, what's going on over the Nolan
That's
house?
Awesome. Jonathan fucking popped me out another $1 billion idea.
Yeah, he's just like he's all wired in and like strapped into these machines, and it's just like getting his ideas from his brain, and it's like, what's next? Interstellar. You have to go see behind someone's dreams. Go, Christopher. Oh my god. Anyway, moving along. Maddox or Curt Schilling?
Yeah, I mean, this one I don't think is even close. I mean, Greg Maddux has like over 350 wins. His first ballot Hall of Famer. Curt Schilling isn't even. So does Greg Maddux. With the Braves the year before they lost to the Yankees, 95.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that team. Yeah, with Glavine and with Hampton. Hampton wasn't on that team, though.
That was Mike Hampton played for the Rockies and the Mets, maybe later on with the Braves. Yeah, it was Smoltz, Glavine,
Hampton
Andrew
was
Jones.
on those Atlanta teams, for sure.
I don't think later? So. Yeah, I think later on. I'll tell you the rotation right now. It was Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, Kevin Millwood, and Steve Avery.
I remember Millwood for sure.
I remember Mike Hampton with the Rockies and then the Mets, maybe the Astros.
Yeah, you good call. Mike Hampton was later on. Houston back then. Houston.
Yeah. Well, because this is like the mid '90s. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like in the mid '90s for him, it was Houston, and
because he went to the Mets in 2000.
He was on the championship team, or the final team that went to the World Series.
Yeah, and I want to say before that he was on the Rockies. No,
great hitting pitcher.
Oh no, he went to the Rockies after the Mets. Yeah, Houston. Yeah, so
Schilling was a beast too on Boston. Got their first ring for them, right? And he also had that run with Arizona with Randy Johnson, where they pitched every game. I mean, Schilling's goated too. I think he could be a better playoff pitcher than Maddox. You could argue that maybe.
I'm not sure if I'd go that far. I just think Greg Maddux is like one of the best pitchers ever.
What he sucked, bro.
Nah, I mean, like I said, Curt Schilling's not even in the Hall of Fame, and even Curt Schilling himself said he doesn't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think he maybe is around that 250 win mark, which is still 100 wins less than Maddox. And Maddox in his prime was just dominant, like
accolades wise and all that stuff, and like regular season wise. Obviously it's Maddox. I think by a lot. I think a lot of people would call me crazy for even trying to debate this, but Curt Schilling in the playoffs might have something there. But anyway, we can move on. Definitely Greg Maddux overall, obviously.
Yeah.
Legend. How many rings would the Warriors team have if Draymond wasn't on the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question because, I don't know who replaces him, if they don't have him, they have someone else, so I just think, everything he brought to that team, I would say, you got to give him at least one, and I think something that points to that is when he did get that suspension and missed the one game eventually that ended up leading to that, collapse from down 3-1 to losing to the Cavaliers. That one game, who knows, maybe if he was in that game, they could get that one done.
I don't think they win two of them, at least. The two that they guarantee they win is the Durants. If Draymond was taken off the first and the fourth, there's no way, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a good argument. That's a good way to put it. I mean, the first one is the one I was thinking for sure.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. But I feel like the role players were better on that team than the fourth one.
Well, the fourth one, I also had, I always like to mention, Jordan Poole is shooting the lights out then. You could argue he had the first one, Livingston and Iguodala, were definitely better than, Jordan Poole. But what I'm saying is, I would argue that Jordan Poole in the finals against Boston was more important than Draymond Green in that series.
Oh, yeah, true. But getting there, yeah.
That's an
interesting comment.
Draymond Green was a lot more limited at that point in his career than he was when they won the first one, when he's guarding LeBron and shit like that. I feel like then he's, at this point of his career, even now you could say he's in the middle of the defense, kind of sagging off whoever can't shoot and then helping. And
he wasn't a defensive player of the year candidate back then.
Yeah, he wasn't a stopper. He still is a great defensive player, but just as almost like a free safety, court general kind of, like I said,
he was A1. He was leader.
He's guarding your best player and locking him up. That's what he was doing in the first
and rebounding and running the entire offense through him because of all the screens and action on offense. Everything runs through him as the point forward.
Yeah. Finishing with 10 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists with 3 steals and a block, just contributing a lot like a better Sean Marion, if you will, someone who just does everything well.
For sure,
maybe
plus
not quite the scorer.
Plus minus God. Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think definitely the first one we agree. The fourth one would be the question. But yeah, that leads us into our, we got to talk about it. A little verbal flop. We always talk about the verbal flops out here. People that make mistakes. And Draymond, you seem to be that guy. Just got to be honest. So We're going to talk about it. Our verbal flop segment. Keep it locked. Okay. Something to drink. Give me 2 seconds.
America got a thing for the gangster shit. They love me. Black Chuckers, Black Scully, leather Pele. I take spit over rainbow shit. I'm a vandal, got that silver duct tape on my tray, ain't handle. The women in my life bring confusion and shit. So like Nino and New Jack, I'll cancel that bitch. Look at me. This is the life I chose. Niggas around me so cold. Man, my heart done froze. I build an empire on a load of knocks. Don't know I'm the weatherman. I take that cocoa leaf and make that snow. Sit back, watch it turn the dough. Watch it go out the dough. O after O, you know. Homie, I'm just triple beam. Dreaming, niggas be scheming. I finna live the good life. The things are just fiending. Conceal my weapon nice and neat so you can't see. The penitentiary is definitely out the question for me.
Let's get into it, bro. Hot, take us through it. Talk to us about Draymond and what he was clamoring about last week. You're on mute. Got him.
I saw him on a podcast.
Got by his mic, everyone.
Hey, back. Sorry about that. We saw him on a podcast last week talking about how the NBA doesn't pay enough or doesn't set people up to be wealthy after they retire because of the fines. I think he specifically mentioned getting fined $100,000 and how his grandmother, needed to work 4 years to make that. And well, you make over $100 million, so your grandma would have to work 10,000 years to make that kind of money. So what are we even talking about here? If these are the fines amounts are what are stopping you from being wealthy, then what you're getting paid, that math doesn't make any sense. And like we were just showing Draymond a lot of respect, but he just has some of the wildest shit come out of his mouth sometimes that I almost think he's just doing it on purpose.
I don't understand. I don't even understand the take. I mean, what are you getting at? You're giving a take that feels like it's 20 years old or 30 years old. Like, this is the time now where NBA players, there's like a lot of guys making over $100 million in the NBA right now. There's probably over 50 guys making over $100 million in the NBA. Getting a $100 million contract in the NBA is like chalk at this point. It's like everyone gets them. Fucking Isaiah Hartenstein might get one. So it's like, at the end of the day, Draymond talking all this about like the idea of fines and how that correlates to his grandmother and how like what is the connection here? Like you're getting fined a lot of money. First of all, you do dumb fuck shit on the court. Let's be clear. You try the refs all the time. You're clamoring with your mouth. You're doing awkward shit with your arms and your legs, swinging your arms, swinging your legs, doing awkward things, aiming for people's dicks. Just the way you are. Even like when you were working for TNT and when the camera pans to you when you're watching the game and you see a Rudy Gobert get fucked up by Luka on that play, and you're just like mocking Rudy like this. It just shows your character. Like you're not even in the game. You're just constantly trying to be a clown and trying to make enemies of people. It feels like, and it feels like you're trying to be the people's enemy and the heel at all times. And it's like forced at some points. Like he's like leaning into trying to be the heel, and he thinks he can just do whatever the fuck he wants or say whatever the fuck he wants. But there's just no connection between your grandmother and what she made during slavery or whatever the fuck and the amount of money that you make right now. Because I'm sure you've already bought her a house, bought her a car, and bought her everything she ever needed in her entire life if she's still alive. So I don't even want to hear that. At the end of the day, talking about $100,000 of fines that you earned probably.
Well, yeah, I like the 2 points you made there. The first one being like, not every player gets fined $100,000, Draymond. Like, these are bad decisions that you're making.
You and Rasheed Wallace. That's it.
Yeah. You're making these decisions that's getting you fined. Let's be clear. It's not like anyone's out here saying, oh, Draymond Green is being unfairly treated. Like, no, you're punching teammates in the face. You're always doing something. So maybe one thing, look at yourself in the mirror. Secondly, you mentioned it, the contracts now. You talk about Isaiah Hartenstein. How much is he going to get? All these hundreds of millions of dollars contracts. The rise of athlete pay has far surpassed inflation. We're looking at numbers from the 90s. I mean, I just watched the Yankees documentary on Peacock, and they're talking about Dave Winfield signing for 10 years, $25 million because of a clause that Steinbrenner thought it was 10 years, $15 million, like hated him as forever because of that $10 million difference.
$10 million.
in 10 years span, like a $10 million over 10 years.
A year, that's shit a day.
And that's literally like less than, an NBA exemption, like 10-day guy gets, after like getting re-signed.
Coming up from the G League to play for 2 weeks, probably getting like a cool $350,000 at least. And if they get signed for the rest of the season, they probably get $2.5 million.
Exactly. Now, guys, like we're talking about the premier players, like I said, watching that documentary, I remember they signed Don Mattingly at the time, who was, coming off an MVP type season, and it was like 5 years, $14 million, and it was like a crazy deal. And it's now like, obviously, you get a 5-year deal and you're an MVP player, 35 years later, you're getting 5 years, $250 million, something crazy like that. 5 years, 200
now in the NBA, they have no idea what's coming. What Luka is going to get paid when he gets re-upped, he's only 25. Are you kidding me, bro? If everything stays on the same trajectory and there's no horrifying injuries or anything like that, it is over. He's going to get like he'll get like a 5-year or a 6-year, like $450 million contract, something stupid.
We're trending towards the $1 billion athlete, $1 billion contract. We're trending towards guys making $100 million a year, within the next 20 years. These are going to be the numbers are
astronomical. I can't even imagine being a Jeff Teague or any of these guys on these podcasts that I see, or JJ Redick, who just missed this wave of really these types of contracts coming out. Like a guy like JJ Redick right now would probably make a lot of money in today's NBA. Not to say he probably made $150 million in his career because of the late contracts. He was signing those 1-year deals a lot, for like $16 million guaranteed or whatever the fuck he was signing. Yeah. So it depends, but
like to look at it like this, like in terms of their NBA salaries, like Draymond Green has made more than Michael Jordan, probably by a lot.
And Redick probably made more than Michael Jordan in just contracts for the NBA.
Yeah, I mean Draymond Green probably made in one contract more than Michael Jordan ever made. So it's kind of crazy. Like I said, when everyone else is probably getting hit by inflation,
those takes for the record, it's always those guys that are like making these crazy takes, who are the guys actually making the money. It's not Michael Jordan, who's the guy who deserves all the money he can take. He's the one that's probably says I would be worth $1 billion in the NBA contract solely if I had played in today's NBA. And like,
oh yeah,
you don't hear him bitching about any of that shit. But like Draymond's bitching about $100K of fines that he actually earned. It's a verbal flop, bro. Shut your mouth. Take your fucking spanking and move on with your life. What are you even talking about? Why are you bringing your grandmother into this, you idiot?
Yeah, we talked about it briefly, but nowadays it's not that broke thing of culture of like 3 out of 5 guys go. Yeah, they're making too much. They're making way too much money now. That's like if you are anything but an absolute idiot like Antonio Brown, you're not going bankrupt.
Yeah, what the fuck? And he has a lot. And Draymond's smart. Like Draymond's definitely not like that with his money. If I would imagine, he has a podcast. He's definitely business savvy, and he could be a Hall of Famer very easily if he keeps. But he's just got to be quiet and stop with this nonsense. He's like 2 or 3 horrible takes away from going down a road of like people just don't even want to fuck with you, and they'll just keep you out of. They'll just gatekeep you, and But
then again, well, that's also maybe he's doing this on purpose because, like you said, he's like playing a heel. Like he's such a good natural heel that maybe he's just going to lean into that now that people love to hate him. He'll be that guy, get in that lane of the guys people love to hate.
Generation's Dennis Rodman type of thing, maybe, I guess, in a sense.
In a sense, but more, I would say like a cross between Dennis Rodman because he's a player who's controversial, and then like just a hot take guy, maybe like a Skip Bayless, a Colin Cowherd, a contrarian, just to be that guy.
And I also meant from like the third option on the team with Curry and Clay, like with Scotty and Michael, like he's also that role too. So he kind of fits that bill of the guy that like is like the look over here as the other 2 guys have been the guys really the whole time.
Yeah, and just in terms of his media career, like being one of those guys who just is saying the shit that even you see it on the TNT desk, he's already doing it. Oh, Knicks are dead versus, the Sixers.
Even though we were in the playoffs last year. And,
he just wants the thing that's going to get the most people mad at him because that gets ultimately clicks, attention, people who agree with you, who are also contrarians, because obviously there's a market for that, the people who want to have that take. But, we'll get into our final segment here, and I'm going to pull an audible, and I'm going to say our giant victory formation because this news just came out. We have all of Major League Baseball's hitters coming together in a giant victory formation to celebrate the retirement of one Angel Hernandez.
What?
Mid-season retirement just announced right now after 3 decades in the majors. I guess that he got the letter.
For anybody who doesn't know Angel Hernandez, this is one of the worst umpires of all time. Worst judgment of the person that calls the game, referee, whatever you want to call that person. Horrible. Blind. Literally calling strikes that are in the dirt or 5 miles away from the strike zone. Just, bang, strike 3, I'm the man, what's up? Like, the most entitled guy ever. So his retirement, blessings. You think he's going to go to the MLB Hall of Fame?
Oh, no way. I mean, he's particularly
popularity. He's got to go.
The calls and the balls and strikes, you know, he's made bad calls in the field, all that stuff, but the balls and strikes are absolutely the worst. I mean, you could watch a montage, a highlight reel, a low light reel, if you will, of strikeouts where it'll be a 4-pitch, all of them well off the plate, and he calls 3 of them strikes, and the final strike will be in the same exact spot as where he just called a ball, the pitch right before. Like, literally a carbon copy that he just called a ball. He'll call a strike the next pitch. You know, it's well documented. There's highlight reels of the worst umpire calls every week now of, like, outside the strike zone by how many inches, and he frequently is in the top 5, like 4 of them. You know, he's just miserable. He's the reason people want robo umps now. Like we're going to see in the NFL with the robo chains now coming out.
Yeah, exactly. You could even just link that. I think that's a great link. Another victory formation that we were going to talk about, which we can talk about quickly here, is that we'll have now automatic first downs, like sensors now in terms for the NFL, but also have the chain gang as well. So little, like, you know, tradition still in terms of the way the NFL looks and is called, and the way kind of the game operates, but still some backup technology to make sure they're getting it right. And, you know, the refs maybe will have that in their ear if they know automatically it's a first down, keep the game kind of flowing a little bit more, because that's all they care about is scoring and flow at this point. I do also want to, in victory formation, shout out the Celtics, who ended up closing out the Pacers. Shout out Derek White making the shot with 45 seconds left to take the lead at 105-102, and that's what the score ended on. Pretty unbelievable to see them sweep. Obviously, the Pacers went out fighting, so kudos to them. Great season for the Pacers. They're young and up-and-coming team. I definitely think they have a lot of promise if they can keep their pieces like Siakam and these guys. Another big game from Nembhard, 24 points for him, so that's back-to-back performances with him. I'm sure we'll see more of him next season, maybe in the 6-man role. He's definitely an electric scorer and a guy that's not afraid of the moment. He hit the big shot against the Knicks, guy that can play some ball. So, you know, shout out to the Pacers, but yeah, Celtics are ready, so they're just like this to the Mavs and the fucking what's it called, the Wolves. Well, probably the Mavs, but you never know. We've seen crazier. I honestly could see the Wolves winning 3 and then they go into a game 7 for no reason in Minnesota. I could see it. Like,
we actually haven't seen crazier. It's never been a 3-0 comeback, you know, in the history of the NBA.
The 3-1 against the Cavs and Golden State, that was pretty nutty.
But it's not crazier than 3-0, you know. We haven't seen crazier.
It's the same concept, 4 straight. You got to win 4 straight.
No, that's 3 straight if you're up 3-1.
Oh, yeah, true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. No,
but no, you're good, though. But no, shout out to the Celtics, you know, and, you know, playing some close games with the Pacers, but eventually getting a sweep. At the end of the day, what more could you want? 12-2, going into the playoffs as a well-oiled machine, into the finals, I should say. And, you know, all these verbal flops, a couple off the cuff. I love it. And, you know, just shouting out the NFL for keeping the chain gang. You know, obviously they're going to primarily go with the, you know, technology. Starting in the preseason, so they're just testing it, but I'm sure it's going to go through. But just seeing those guys out there, it's fun. It's part of the game, even if they are just a backup, if the technology goes haywire or whatever. You know, we don't need to get rid of the chain gang, at least not
yet.
At least make them robots or something.
I also like the aesthetic of seeing the chains on the side of the field, and just like that thing that like whatever that thing is called that holds the chains.
Yard marker.
Yeah, like I like the aesthetic still. I don't like, if you're going to change the game around with technology, no problem, but I don't want the aesthetics to change around the game where like a monitor in the NBA comes down onto the court that stops the whole game, and it's like a whole thing when every time they want to do a review, like, no, they just walk over to the side, do it quickly, and then move on. And, you know, don't change the fucking game to the point where I can't watch as a fan.
Yeah, the yard marker, the down marker, that's like part of it. You know, even watching like replay, seeing the guys reach past it, you know, things like that. You can't recreate that. Like when you see those replays, there's no yellow line on the field. You know, you see the yard marker and they get past it or they don't. You know, the down marker guy diving out of the way not to get hit. That stuff is all part of the, you know, romance of football, and I'm glad to keep it in. But what a night, what an episode. I'm excited.
Shout out to Rangers. Shout out to Laviolette. And that huge timeout, bro, that got the troops together. Bang. And we held in strong. Came back. We're here. Rangers are here.
Shout out.
Again.
Shout out to Bill Walton. Hang on. I want to see if, real quick, let me see if Dave Pash did like a tweet, because I'd love to see that.
And just an update while you're looking for that is the Stars and the Oilers are tied 3-3 in the third right now. That series is also tied 1-1. I mean, you could just put 7 on the board for that series, it feels like, as well. I mean, both hockey series are electric. If you're not watching, tune in. You're just missing out on great hockey. Hockey playoffs is as electric as anything. So, and also shout out to Indy 500. The finish in the Indy 500 was ridiculous. The guy Newber, whatever his name is won back-to-back Indy 500s, which is insane to think about. But I mean, that was an incredible finish. I'm not even a I'm not even a car racing guy. I just said horse racing. Dude, that tells you all you need to know. But I'm not even a car racing guy. Like, I don't like any of that shit. Really, I don't watch that type of stuff. But bro, that finish was unbelievable.
I'll have to check it out. I haven't seen it, but Dave Pash, longtime broadcast partner in the Pac-12 of Bill Walton, said, "There will never be another Bill. Love and miss you, my friend." And it's just a picture of Bill Walton wearing like a tank top calling a game next to Bill Pash. I don't know if it'll be
always with the crazy outfits, Bill, and the high socks. Rest in peace, Bill Walton. Yeah, I see him there. Oh my God. Always.
Hilarious. What a post. Shout out to Bill Pash, but we're going to call it a night. Sixers says.
Dreamers, we're here.
We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. Let's go.